Chapter 13. We arrived at my parents' only a few minutes later than I had planned. Thankfully, I'd planned to show up a little earlier than Mom and Dad expected us, so we didn't have to explain why we were late. That would have been awkward. I knocked on the door as I let Devon and myself in. Instead of yelling out like I normally would have, I stayed silent for a moment, listening. I heard Mom in the kitchen, moving around and cooking, but I couldn't hear Dad, or the screen on in the living room indicating that he was watching something. I listened closer for a second. I could hear two people other than Devon and myself, breathing. Both of my parents were in the kitchen. I closed the door softly and led Devon to the kitchen. Leaning against the door jamb for a moment, I watched my parents together. Mom was moving around the kitchen getting the last of the meal together, while my father stood beside the island, a potato masher in one hand, as he worked the potatoes in the bowl into a smooth texture. He wasn't moving much more than his arm, and the sound of Mom moving around the room had covered the small sounds he was making. Mom turned away from setting a stack of plates and silverware on the table and spotted me in the doorway, and Devon at my back. A smile spread across her face. "There you are," she said. "I was just wondering when you would get here. You're usually earlier than this." I felt heat rush to my face. "We were just running a little late, Mrs. Daniels." Devon spoke up. He set one hand on my hip, reminding me I was blocking his path. I quickly stepped out of the way, going to set the table. "You're still early, dear," she assured him. "Just not as early as usual." Dad was quiet, but I knew he was seeing everything around him. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Devon asked. "Can you grab the salad and the dressing out of the fridge?" Mom pulled open the oven and lifted out a pan of fresh-baked rolls. We all pitched in, and within minutes we had dinner on the table. We sat down and passed dishes around until everyone was served. "How are things going with you two?" Dad asked once we'd begun eating. "We're doing well, Dad. Really well." I took a bite of roasted chicken. "That's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about, sir." Devon spoke up. "Dev, I've told you not to call me that. My name's Jim, and I expect you to use it." Devon nodded. "I know, I'm sorry. It's habit." "What was it you wanted to talk to me about then?" Dad said. "Well, Nickie's told you that we're potential mates, right?" Dad nodded, not sure where this was leading. "Well, I don't know how much she's told you, but one of the side effects of an unsealed mating is a kind of exaggerated separation anxiety. We have a hard time if we go more than a day or two without some kind of physical contact." "You mean," Dad trailed off, his face turning red. I wasn't sure if it was anger or embarrassment. "Dad," I gasped, shocked. "It's not like that." I reached over and laid my hand over Devon's, where it sat on the table. "It's like this. Some kind of physical proximity. Touch nearness." The flush faded from my father's skin, replaced by a look of confusion. "And why are you telling me this?" Devon took a deep breath. "Because the Aniquitos." "He means Bill." I put in. "Is going to need Nickie to do some traveling." Devon finished. I saw the realization dawn on my father's face. "So you're going to need time off?" Dad said, relieved. "Pretty much, yeah," Devon said, but quickly continued. "I won't leave you hanging, though. I'll arrange for someone to fill in for me and help you out." "You don't have to do that. I can take care of things while you're gone." "I do need to do it," Devon insisted. "You don't need to be handling it all by yourself, and helping you is my job. Finding someone to cover for me while I'm gone is part of that job." "What about the trouble Brandon's been causing?" Dad wanted to know. "That's part of why Devon's going to go with me. Bill won't send me out of town without some kind of security." Devon will be that security. Is it going to be dangerous? Mom wanted to know. I shook my head. Bill would never send me to do something he believed would be dangerous, not if he could find a way around it. But I've developed what appears to be a unique set of talents, and they're valuable to the pack. So, any time I need to travel on pack business, and likely if I were to travel at all, I get someone going along to ensure I'm safe. Mom looked relieved. No offense, but are you sure you're up to the job, Devon? Dad asked. You've got that bad knee. He wasn't trying to insult Devon, just be sure that I would be well protected. None taken. Honestly, I'm glad you're comfortable enough to ask. Nothing means more to me than Nickie's safety. He covered my hand with his and squeezed. My knee hasn't been bothering me as much. I'm not sure if it's because I've been working it and strengthening it, or if it might actually be healing. Either way, I went to Bill a couple of weeks ago, and I requested to be her security when she travels. He had me qualify as an enforcer. Enforcer? Dad asked. Basically, they're pack security. I told them. They serve as bodyguards for Bill and Karen and others in the pack. They enforce the rules and mete out punishments as they're ordered to. Punishments? Mom asked. I explained the complications of letting the human police imprison Kitsune, and how the Anikitos and the enforcers generally police the behavior of the pack, ensure their behavior with punishment as needed. That's just so brutal. Mom said, finally. It is, but it's effective. Devon assured her. I can't see Bill dispensing punishment like that. Dad said. I don't know that he does it himself rather than orders it. But from what I've heard, it's not common in this pack. Some Anikitos rule their packs with fear, and Bill seems to do it with loyalty. He generally gets people to do what he wants simply because they like him, because he's a good leader. Devon said. Do you know of any punishments? Mom wanted to know. I looked down at my plate, not sure if I wanted to share. Actually, yes. I do. I couldn't lie to them if I didn't have to. Oh, she asked. Brandon's been punished more than once because he won't stop harassing me. Dad started to get angry. Is he still bothering you? It's taken care of, Dad. I said calmly. I'm sure I won't be seeing him again anytime soon. I've kept an eye out, he hasn't come here. Mom said. That's a relief. I said. I was worried he would try to get to me through you. Dad turned back to Devon and went back to the original conversation. So when do you need that time? I don't know yet, Devon admitted. We know it's coming, but not when or where he'll send us. I just wanted you to know so that it wouldn't come as a surprise when it happens. All right, I guess I can handle someone filling in for you while you're ensuring my daughter's safety. Dad said grudgingly. I knew he was putting on a show of being more unhappy than he really was. We finished dinner, chatting and laughing. Devon and I helped Mom clean up the kitchen and do the dishes before we called it a night. We showed up at Rain's ready for a workout Saturday evening as arranged. I was wearing loose shorts and a soft cotton tank top, while Devon had on an old pair of shorts and t-shirt, both had Army and block letters printed on them. I rang the doorbell, as I tried one last time to convince Devon we didn't need to do this. So how many times do I have to knock you on your ass before you decide I don't need this? I asked. At least 5 if you can. He seemed confident I wouldn't be able to do it, which only served to fuel my determination. The door opened, revealing Rain, still in his uniform. Come on in, he stepped back, letting us in the door. Head on into the garage. I just got home and need to change. I'll be out in just a minute. He turned and headed down the hallway to his bedroom. Don't be too long. Dev's decided I only have to knock him down 5 times before we can give this up and do something fun. I called. He waved one hand over his head before I turned and led Devon into the garage. Come on, let's get this over with. I led the way through the kitchen and laundry room to the door leading into the garage. As we stepped into the room, it was pleasantly cool, surprising for this time of year, especially because garages are typically not insulated or cooled. Looking around, I could see no sign of the garage door we'd seen outside. How odd, I commented. He's finished it, I'm betting, with insulation and its own cooling system. It's the only reason I can think of to wall over the door, Devon said. This is beyond sweet. I looked around, not moving to do anything. Devon tapped my arm. Come on, the mats are over here. Let's get them laid out and start warming up. He led the way to the rack holding several mats. We each grabbed a couple and laid them on the floor, creating a good-sized area for the two of us to grapple on. Once we had the mats laid out, I started stretching, warming up my muscles so I wouldn't pull anything and hurt myself. I heard the door behind me open and close and caught a whiff of Rain's scent, so I didn't bother to turn around until I heard the sound of skin smacking together. I turned and looked at both the men, but they looked like nothing had happened. What was that? What was what? Rain asked innocently. One of you hit the other, now tell me what's up. Devon couldn't contain his laughter anymore. I found the sight of you stretching like that more than a little distracting, and your brother didn't appreciate me noticing quite so much. Realizing what must have happened, I rolled my eyes and muttered "men" as I went back to stretching. When I was done, I turned back to the guys. Are we gonna get this over with? I want to kick back and have a beer, and I can't do that until we're done. I stood, my knees bent slightly, ready for an attack, and beckoned them forward. Devon and Rain looked at each other, then back at me. Devon shrugged and advanced. You realize that no attacker is going to come at you like this. With you expecting it and ready to fight him off, right? He walked with flexed knees, half expecting me to attack him instead of waiting for him to come after me. I couldn't really blame him for his caution, it was something I would probably do. Devon lunged, feinting before falling back and waiting for me to dive in defense. When I fell for it and dove toward him, he wrapped one arm over my back and around my torso, pinning one arm beneath his and the other between our bodies. What are you going to do now? He taunted. I lifted my feet off the floor, leaving him holding my entire weight. The unexpected move caused him to lose his balance, nearly falling on top of me. As he fell, I pushed my feet back to the floor and threw my whole body back, breaking his grip and freeing myself while throwing him to the side at the same time. I turned and watched him hit the floor as I stood beside him. That's one. I gloated, dancing out of his reach. I'll give you that one, let's see if you can do it again. He stood back up and looked at me. He feinted again, but I didn't fall for it this time. I stood back, waiting, watching. I knew eventually he'd make a move, and I just had to wait for it. After several tries, he realized I wouldn't be tricked into making the first move again, and he made one himself. He came at me, bent low, his shoulder aimed at my torso. I knew if I let him hit me, it would knock the air out of me and he would take me down. I stepped to one side, bringing the bottom of my folded elbow down on the back of his neck while using one leg to sweep his feet backwards out from under him, knocking him face down on the mat. It's not your ass, but I think that counts as two. I bounced around on the mat gleefully. Why are you counting? Rain asked. Because Devon said I had to knock him on his ass 5 times before we could go do something fun instead. I danced around Devon as I spoke. When Rain stepped up behind me and wrapped both arms around me, he caught me by surprise. He had my arms pinned to my sides as he hugged me against him. Hey, that's cheating, I cried before flinging my head back, making him loosen his hold slightly to avoid being smacked in the face. I was lifting my leg to reach back and kick him in the knee when Devon shouted. Don't hit him, Nickie. Rain and I both froze for a split second. I turned, Rain's arm still around me, to look at Devon. He was slowly making it to his feet. You'll hurt him, and he doesn't heal like I do. Let me go, Rain, I said over my shoulder. He let me go without argument. Did I hurt you, Dev? I approached him carefully. Not seriously, but if I were human, I wouldn't be getting up anytime soon. There was some kind of spinal injury, but it couldn't have been too serious, or I wouldn't be up and about yet. You're sure you're all right? I asked. I'm fine, or I will be soon, but if you'd hit him like you did me, your brother wouldn't be. You're going to have to stick to sparring with Kindred until you learn to keep your strength in check for the exercise. I can't believe I hurt you, I'm so sorry. I wasn't trying to do real damage. It's not like I couldn't take it. I'm just glad it was me and not Rain. You would be devastated if you'd hurt him that way. He was right, I would be. It's not doing great things for me that I did it to you, I replied, rubbing my hands back and forth over the front of my shirt, unsure what to do. Seeing my indecision, he came over and put his arms around me. It's all right, little warrior, I'm healing. I know you didn't mean to hurt me, and you'll know to temper your strength in the future. I sure will, I assured him. But only during sparring. He warned. If you're attacked, I want you fighting with all you've got. I know. Believe me, if someone comes after me, I'll use everything I have to keep them from hurting me. I rubbed the side of my face against his chest, taking in his warmth and scent. He gently kissed the top of my head. Good, he replied. You really heal that fast? Rain asked, reminding me he was there. Some of us heal better than others, and it depends on how bad the injury is, but some of us, yeah. Wow, that's quite a bonus. He seemed impressed. It's one of the big ones. Devon agreed. I moved slightly so I could see Rain while still staying in Devon's arms. He tilted his head to one side, as though something had occurred to him. Does it only heal new injuries, or can you heal old ones too? He asked. Both, I answered, pulling away from Devon. I turned so that a certain spot on my forehead was aimed at Rain. Look here. He leaned in, trying to see what I was pointing out to him. I don't see anything, he said, confused. Exactly. I went back to Devon, trying to reassure myself he was all right. I used to have a scar there, from running into a tree. I remember that. You hit the tree so hard it knocked you out cold, and you made me feel so guilty about it because I'd been teasing you. Yep. When did it disappear? I noticed it within a couple days of my first shift. I asked Karen about it and she said that scars healing after the first shift isn't uncommon. So, according to that, Devon's leg should have healed. He reasoned. Yes and no. It probably will heal over time, but the scar tissue is extensive. From what I've been able to find out, the worse the scar tissue, the longer it takes to heal. While it's likely healing, there's no telling how long it will take to heal the amount of damage he has. Something occurred to me as I explained to Rain. I looked up at Devon. You don't have any pins in there or anything, do you? Not anymore. They pulled them shortly before I moved home. Good, I don't know how our systems would react to the metal. It never occurred to me to ask. It's not really an issue anyway. Not for you, but it might be for some other non-shifter. It'll need to be something we ask about. If nothing else, they may have to get, whatever it is, removed after they've shifted. Why after they've shifted? Rain asked. Because then they'll have the faster healing, and recovery won't be as long. He nodded. That makes sense. I turned back to Devon. So what now? I only knocked you down twice, but I'm done. I'm not fighting you anymore tonight, and I won't fight Rain either. I could call Brandon to come over and you could beat the crap out of him. Rain suggested. I shot him a glare before turning back to Devon. I'm done for the evening too, he admitted. Let's have a drink, kick back and watch something. I've got some beer if you'd like, Rain offered. And I'm sure we can find something on the screen if you want to hang around here for a while. That sound great, bro. Thanks. Devon replied, heading into the house, one arm around me as we walked. We picked up our shoes and went inside, dropped them near the front door before we pulled a couple of beers from the fridge and settled onto the sofa to watch a film with Rain.